Well, hello, everybody. Welcome back to Cocktails and Rocktails with me, your most notorious groupie, Alice Mouse, author of this We've Got Tonight, The Life and Times of Notorious Groupie. That's right, and these other books also all available on audio now. So you can take a road trip and listen to my story. Or clean house and listen here and there. But just listen from beginning to end, because that's how I get paid. Shameless plug, I know. And as always, you guys, I just want to say thank you. Oh, where you can get my books, my merchandise, everything down in that description. So go down and fiddle about because I love it. All right. And as always, thank you, everybody who supports the channel, just even by being here, by watching, members, subscribers, everybody. Thank you so much. And you know I've shut down Patreon, so everybody bring your memberships over here because I got a lot of good stuff happening. Not going to tell you yet, but good stuff coming your way. Maybe some takeovers. What does that mean? But okay, so as always, just thank you for all the love, all the support, everything you guys bring to the channel. Really, truly means the world to me. So thank you so much. And today, you guys, we're going to have a little reading. You know, when you see my paperback, there's going to be a story read. Because I get a lot of people wondering about, and see it on Reddit and stuff, because there's, oh, well, she doesn't do anything after 2002. Well, 1985 to 2002, that's a pretty good run for being a groupie. But that's not exactly true. I just sort of ended the book at 2002, because when I was writing it, it's like I said, you got to keep some things for yourself. Of course not. You know, another groupie friend of ours said to Danny when John passed away, and she was like, oh God, she's like, Allison is never going to be out. She's still going to hang out backstage after this happened. Danny was like, oh, nothing will stop her. If anything, this will spur her on more. But it was really at that point, it was because, and still is, because this is people that I've made memories with that know me 30 years, that I feel safe, comfortable, and content around to be myself. And when you're being yourself, it makes you more comfortable, you know, in conversations, in between the sheets, everything. So who wouldn't want to hang around people that make them feel that way? So, but like I said, I'm going to read, 2003 and beyond. I'm just going to read a little bit from the book and kind of put it in perspective because, like I said, I was hanging around other bands. I was hanging around Oris still and Nickelback because Oris was working for them. I was backstage at Megadeth and Slayer, stuff like that. So I still hang out. It's just I don't need to be around every goddamn band that comes into town anymore. I just want to be around my friends, people I'm comfortable with. And this kind of talks about that because after you go through something like that with John and being dragged through the press and stuff, and you haven't seen certain friends and stuff for a while, the rumors do precede you into the hotel bar. They do kind of change not how they see you or not how they know you, but their perspective. And it's not necessarily bad, but it's not great either. It's just kind of this gray area. When you walk in the room, it's like, oh, that kind of precedes you. But once things get relaxed, it's like, oh, it's just the family again. So kind of talks a little bit about that. And today we're going to finish up one of my favorites. I love this, you guys. I hope somebody's tried a couple of these or anything and liked it. I mean, not everything's going to be everybody's flavor, but that's okay. We don't need to all be exactly alike and do everything exactly alike. Diversity. God did it to the earth on purpose. So, but this is so, so good, you guys. So, everybody kick up your feet, grab your dragons, and let's have a little cocktail and somewhat of a rocktail. All right. Cheers, biggers. Ooh, perfect head. Like Mick Jagger told me. And Steve Jones. I'm certified. I'm certified. Go ahead. Okay, so where am I? All right, so this is chapter 20 in my book. For those of you guys who have not actually read the book, this is chapter 20 because I do kind of stop my groupie exploits and my groupie stories for the book after John passes away because there's the crescendo. When you're writing a book, you want the crescendo, and well, there it is. Lots of years of, rock and roll. Rock and roll is really repetitive unless you're actually reading the stories that are going in between the hotel bar and the hotel bedroom. So, it was just kind of, I felt like stopping right there, because what do you do after 2002? And not just with John passing away, but Glenn Tipton and all that brouhaha. Oh my God. So, okay, let's get a little reading going on. So, and this is, like I said, chapter 20, Behind Blue Eyes, 2003, and beyond. And if you read the book, you'll see all the passes that are in there and a few pictures. It's never big on taking pictures, but took some. So, after all that, meeting everything in Las Vegas with John, where does a groupie go? A few places while you try to run from the reality of it all. Mostly backstage and a little on the road. Because if you stay on the road, you can outrun the reality of normal life, right? No. I should have known that it catches up to us all out there in the musical caravans. Maybe just briefly, but it is always hovering over your shoulder like a little kid trying to get that last golden ticket. Because, let's face it, as a stripper and hanging out with rock stars, I didn't have to spend too much time dealing with, what most people do with work and stuff like that. I mean, we all have our own issues. We all have our own dramas. Nobody's life is easier. Nobody's life is harder. We all think the grass is greener, but it isn't. Just more problems, different, different yards. So, and I had kind of lived a charmed life, being the stripper, not having to get up at an alarm clock, making tons of money, taking off whenever I wanted to. Like, I hadn't worked a holiday in 15 years. Was always around for my mom's birthday or, whatever, Christmas, Thanksgiving, always be able to live this leisure life. So I was very lucky because, like I said, I made my own money. I lived this leisure life. I could go out on the road at a moment's notice. Somebody called me up. Vinny's like, hey, you want to come to Dallas? Come tomorrow? Okay, cool beans. See you in the morning. Cool. I was able to do that. So having to get to, a normal pace of things was really not, because then it meant I also had to deal with the fact of everything that was going on with John. I was kind of running away from the mourning because Cy and I didn't get to mourn right away at all by any means. We had to deal with the fucking eye of that hurricane. We had to deal with Hurricane 6, a 6 point whatever it is. Whew. So I was trying to outrun it. I was like, okay, I don't have to mourn. I'm not going to mourn. I'm okay. It'll be okay. Like they say, denial, it ain't just a river in Egypt, is it? All right. So while my reality sat on my shoulder like a cheeky monkey, I chose only to see the golden ticket that had been in my hand all these years. I wasn't ready for the reality thing to happen. I had been ignoring it most of my life, so why invite it in for tea now? Fuck that. After being abroad with one of my newest rockers, I eventually went back to Salt Lake City in my regular ways. I was coming full circle. The city had been in a long, dusty sleep and needed some good groupie awakening. I relivened the former debaucherous capital along with my friend Amber and fell into old circles and a couple of times with Metallica. James and I accidentally ran into each other outside the hotel bar and instinctively flitted towards each other. He and I saw our old selves briefly while catching up. I told the boys of my intention to do this book, thinking that James and Lars would try to shut it down as they had many other things over the years. But quite the opposite. They, along with a few of their longtime roadies, applauded and welcomed the chance to find out the rest of my story. This ought to be good, Lars exclaimed, and that was the general belief to all the boys. I felt a sense of relief, and for the times I was around, the old sense of family I had once enjoyed with my generation's biggest rockers. Because as I've said previously, things in rock and roll end. Tours end. Fascinations end. the love of their music ends. And this is the first time I had come along to Metallica for a while, and I wanted to tell people about the book. I wanted to let them know this was happening. And like I said, Lars is like, now we're going to find out what's rumor and what's truth. And I'm like, fuck you, dude. Now you know, boys. Now you know. Okay. Let's have a little drinky drink. That was so not sexy. Sorry, I got a little of the foam stuck in the back of my throat. Sorry. Oh, the bodily functions that come out of me sometimes. All right. I surprised Vincent Paul one last time with his new band damage plan. When they rolled through Salt Lake City, I walked downstairs at the club they were playing and sat in the tiny dressing room, catching up as Vin mixed my friend and I drinks. The look on my face when I told him why I left Las Vegas said it all. Because he was like surprised to see me. He was like, "What are you doing in Salt Lake City?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm from here. I left Vegas." He's like, "Why the fuck would you leave Vegas?" Because he was at the time thinking about moving to Vegas. This is not long before he moved, a few years before he moved. He loved Vegas. You know, we saw each other a lot more than I talk about because he would just take off to Vegas and hang. So he loved me in Las Vegas, and he was just like, "Why would you leave Vegas?" So the look on his face when I told him why I left Las Vegas said it all. Vinny's illusion of him being my only rock and roll lover was deflated with one little sentence. Because, ladies, we don't talk about other rock stars. You are with that man in that moment, and it is only about you and him. There's nobody else in that bed, and there's no other woman sitting on the side of his stage. So when you are with that rocker and he is with you, it is about you two at that moment and what is going on right then and there. Not about tomorrow, not about the next day, not about anything else. It's about you two. And we honestly get very comfortable in that little illusion that, you know, there's nobody outside of than us, you know, because we're so like with Vinny, with Steve Jones, with Glenn Tipton, with Metallica, with Megadeth, with whoever we were with. You know, John, my 13-year bass player, not John, 13-year bass player and John are two different people. But, you know, it was always about us and in that moment and making them feel like there's no one else on the face of the earth as their lover. So and of course, like I said, Metallica, there was rumors and stuff. They knew. We all know. We just don't talk about it. But Vinnie Paul, he was kind of Vin was a little bit more, I kept him very shielded. Like, he was never around other rockers that knew me. Or that we were all around together at the same time, because that happens. That's a whole nother episode. But okay, so Vinny's illusion of him being my only rock and roll lover was deflated with one little sentence. But he still didn't leave my side all night, even when some groupie wannabe in Frankenstein boots tried to woo him away. She was funny. Wow. That was funny. No matter what, although Vin and I had naturally floated away from our lover's port, he still had a loyalty to the memory of it. As did I. Sometime that night, Vincent Paul's brother Dime chatted me up and wondered what the hell I was doing in Salt Lake City. He was so used to me being with his brother in Las Vegas. He also lauded the years Vin and I had fallen into bed after bed after bed together. Dime said Vinny always lit up when I came around and left with a days-long glow when we parted ways. I know I did. Vin had left it on my answering machine many times. "You made my day, you made my way. Can't wait to see you again," was usually his message. Dime didn't understand why he and I never really got together. Because, as he said, in some way, I reminded him of their mother, and Vin adored their mama. Ew! Oh. Was I Vinny's mommy complex this whole time? No, I wasn't. But yeah, that was kind of like, okay. So, ew, I said. That was kind of Freudian. I laughed and shrugged off his suggestion of his brother and I being an actual couple. Because when it comes to even rock stars or, It's like they're even afraid. Is this girl, and will I be good enough for her? Will she compare me to other rock stars? Will she pick up and leave when another band she likes better than mine comes into town? So there's always that insecurity. And there's always that judgment to groupies, especially the 80s groupies that kind of like, oh, because people are like, why didn't you get together? So you're going to have to ask the boys. You're going to have to ask Vincent Paul. You have to ask Mark. John finally figured it out, but it was a little too late by the time he figured it out. But so you'll have to ask them. It was their own insecurities, not mine. I was open to it. Just their own insecurities kept him from having a good thing. So Vincent Paul came over and broke up Dime and I's conversation. Daryl and I hugged a final goodbye. It was May of 2004. In about 6 months, my lover's brother, along with a couple other Damage Plan family members, would be heinously pew-pewed down by a psychopath called Nathan Gale as they began their set. So, yeah, that happened. So this is everything that was happening from 2002 and beyond. And that was, the last time I saw Dime alive was in that little pimp-looking purple velvet and black dressing room. Okay. So sometime after that, when Vin came back from his tragedy's aftermath, he reformed his rock and roll energy into the ever so lame band called Hell Yeah. I hated that band. That's when Vinny in my mind kind of got into a bunch of unsavory friends and people that were kind of hangers-on and used him, and yeah. So I stopped by one of the tours to let Vinny know about this book. I thought he would be just as welcoming as the same of all of our other metal friends had been. But he was cold and angry instead. He threatened me with lawyers, and I slammed the proverbial door shut. In turn, I scoffed at the threat and reminded him of the book he had just written about his years as Dime's brother. Hypocrite. We've all seen that. There's a whole episode about this, of me telling Vincent Paul off. I even have the receipts. I show the actual conversations between Vinny and I on Facebook. So I got the receipts, folks. So, and I actually said back to him, I'm like, you think this is after I had sued Roger Daltrey and shit. I'm like, and you think because he's like, I got the best money lawyers can buy. I'm like, oh, and I don't, bitch? I didn't call him bitch, but I said, oh, and I don't? Never underestimate a groupie, darling. We're wonderful surprises at every turn. Okay. So in turn, I've scoffed at the hypocrite, but in the end, I will always remember the good he and I shared with respect and fondness. Plus, I have one thing no other groupie ever did. I will always be the only one that has the ever so sacred Vincent Paul. That rests in my hands. Well, that and I have the furry purse. Now, the furry purse was stolen when I had my storage unit broken into. But the thing about Vincent Paul was that his mom called him that. And the night we met, he's like, only my mama calls me that. I'm like, now me and your mama. And nobody was allowed to call him that. Like, one of his security guards who knew him for a long time, Chris, was kind of bitched me out. He's like, don't call him Vincent Paul. Only his mother calls him that. And Vin was like, no, she can. Because his mother had just passed away a year before. And he was like, no, she can. She's okay. It's comforting. So very rarely did anybody call him Vincent Paul. But that is, as we all know, that's what I always call him. And if you guys, you want to see the receipts, you want to see all this stuff, buy the book. The pictures are in there. More passes. See, I wasn't just sitting around idly, was I? Hell no. Groupies aren't idle. Okay. I went on about my life as normal and spent more time in denial and hanging out with the likes of Cypress Hill, Ministry, Korn, U2, Snow Patrol, and Nickelback, but only because my lifelong friend Oris was their FOH for Nickelback. I went fabulously about my rock and roll fantasy in new, audacious formation and ignored the reality breathing down my neck. But its breath caught up with me when I tried applying for jobs. It was there as I realized I had been spending money like I was still making it. Because I had a lot of stripper money saved, tabloid money, whatever. I had saved a lot of money, so I was just not working. But then, because I was used to working as a stripper, doing magazines, feature shows, traveling, stuff like that. Necro Babes, early website, early internet. But anyway, so I had all this money saved away, but I was spending money like I was still earning money. So I would try and find jobs. Plus, I needed health insurance. So, I would try and find jobs. And this is when people were first, Google was first being used in jobs when people were looking to hire you as an employee. And oh, God. So the reality set in, and I went to Borders and read music magazines. Because that was kind of my Sunday thing. I would go to Borders, get a hot chocolate with some hazelnut cream in it, and just sit and read like Rolling Stone and Q and Mojo and stuff like that. So that was kind of my escape, because my day-to-day reality of looking for jobs and sitting around people, like when I went to work for Clark's Shoes as the assistant manager for the very first store that opened up here in Salt Lake City, my coworker Derek and I had trained in Seattle. Then we had come down and we had 12 hours days of putting up all the displays and getting all the merchandise in the store. So our general manager took us out for dinner one night and was like, as a thank you. And Derek went to go grab his husband because we were all going to go out and drink at another bar. While Thomas and I were sitting at the bar waiting for Derek and his husband to get back, Thomas was like, all right, let's talk about the elephant in the room. And I'm like, there's an elephant? Where is it, Pink? Can I pet it? Can I pet it? Because I love animals. Can I pet the elephant? Can I? Huh? So he's like, are you that girl that was with John Entwistle? I was like, oh my God. And this is before I sued Roger Daltrey and started, kind of really picking up on the interviews that I did back then. Because I would do regular interviews with this newspaper in Mexico City. I would do a lot of new websites that were coming out, a lot in Europe. So I've done a lot of interviews. I just kind of shied away from them for a long time, because when I did the original tabloid interview, it was nothing of what I said. It was all twisted. So I just kind of shied away. But yeah, that was my experience. People would Google and be like, oh, we know who you are. I'd sit across, I was going to be an assistant to a CEO. I was applying for that job. And he's just like, oh, I'm probably not going to hire you. I'm a Who fan. I just wanted to, hear the story. Fuck you, dude. So that was coming into my life. Somebody Googled me. I was a parapro at an elementary school working with learning disabled and autistic kids. And the principal happened to be my mom's best friend. She knew about my past. And they do background checks when you go work at school. But, my mom had worked for the district. She was a very respected educator, so they gave me the job. But then somebody Googled me in the library. One of the male teachers who had a little thing for me, that we had a little thing, that happens back there and that thing. But anyway, so he Googled me in front of the kids. And of course, guess what comes up? The lies, the reality, all of it. So lost my job there. So that was kind of like, what the fuck, So the reality set in when I went to Borders and was reading music magazines while enjoying a Sunday morning hot chocolate. Music rag after music rag spread the slander that I was a hooker. They attacked me, calling me a murderer, someone who takes away people's lives. They blamed me for the schmain. I didn't have anything to do with it in reality, and it never ended. The lies. How could it? Not only had I been involved in the ultimate rock star passing, but the Who suddenly took up touring and recording again. The never-ceasing attention of that one night cost me my sanity in the end. And I fell off the backstage pedestal I had been standing so defiantly on for so long. Yeah, I fell right into my lawyer's office and I took action. When I chose to go after Roger Daltrey for several interviews in which he called me a hooker, I hit below the belt when notifying him of my intention. So the Who had not played Salt Lake City since like the early 70s or late 60s. They were playing in Las Vegas right before they were playing their Salt Lake City show. So, the irony, I had Roger Daltrey served backstage in Las Vegas. And a day and a half later, he was in Salt Lake City, where I was living and my lawyer's offices were. Good times. So, when I chose to go after Roger Daltrey for several interviews in which he called me that, I hit below the belt when notifying him of my intentions. The Who was back on another tour and playing Salt Lake City on this jaunt. This was a big deal. The band had not played behind the Zion curtain since the 70s. So me, being the bitch that I was, I told my lawyer I wanted the Shire-dwelling Mount jockey served before he got to my metropolis. Oddly enough, the place they were able to serve him was minutes before the Who's show in Las Vegas. The band had flown into Salt Lake City a few days later. Irony. I am sure Roger thought quite a lot about whether or not this groupie would find her way to the backstage doors. It was rumored I might. Kasai was still working. He became Roger's personal assistant on a few tours, and he was still working for the Who for a while. So, yeah, so it was rumored I could have gone, but I didn't want to. I think it was more fun playing the mental game that, is she going to show up? Is she not going to show up? Because the second I showed up, all questions were answered. There was a whole different kind of attitude that was going to be had. But me not showing up left him in that gray area all night until he went to general aviation, got on that plane, and flew back to fucking LA. So, yeah. That was way more fun. Because they weren't sure if I was in Vegas or in Salt Lake City, so I knew where I was. And Cy had even told Roger, you shouldn't have said that about her. She was never a hooker. You shouldn't have said that about her. She's not the typical chick backstage. She doesn't put up with this bullshit. So I told him that night in Vegas. Shouldn't have done it, dude. Shouldn't have done it. So, okay. It was rumored that I might. I almost did, as I still had plenty of friends working on that tour and could have rubbed salt into Roger's wound, much as he had been in mine. But as much fun as it would have been to taunt the situation, I stayed away. Roger settled the suit immediately and without question as instructed by his lawyer. I am sure he also found out his mistake from mutual rock and roll friends, as many have me in common one way or another. And this is the apology letter. Like I said, if you read the book, it's in there. And there's another episode where I show the actual letter and stuff. But, okay. So I have a piece of rock and roll memorabilia. Oh my God, this letter, you guys don't even understand what kind of rock and roll memorabilia that is. Roger Daltrey's signature on a apology letter to the chick that was with his bass player when he died. Go figure. Nobody else has it. That's a one of a fucking kind thing. Nobody else has anything like that. No other groupie would go after him like I did. Because they were doormats. Anyway, the 70s. Those, you know who I'm talking, scammy Les Pars. Okay, but even after all the fighting I did to clear my name and take back my rock and roll reputation, I was still in denial that I was affected mentally and emotionally from the reality of John. What it was coming down to is that the reality sat on my shoulder clear as day for some time to come, flashing like a strobe light in my memory. The rigor, the lividity. The room full of cops, the calls from the tabloids, and all the running away I had done since, the aftermath. The real world invaded my private little rock and roll fantasy and tore a hole in it for all the world to poke at. And in the end, I had to stop and lick my wounds, and even make some new ones, only to discover that I didn't belong in the real world. I tried and failed miserably. Every attempt sadder at the last. But how does a girl with a public past survive out there anyway? You don't. The only place I ever felt right, ever felt safe, was behind the little steel gates in the protected world of rock and roll. I spent the next several years in silence with a pinch of nervous breakdown thrown in, only venturing out for the tours I had a history with. That one night of my rock and roll life preceded me in the backstage hallway. I was getting wary of being that girl. Because when walking backstage to see these new bands or tours I may have friends working on, with the sweet fruity scent of scandal wafting gently behind you, it seems very noticeable and a heavy burden to be lugging around. These new guys starfuck their ways towards my Black Widow web, only to be usually met with the bite of death. I was still angry and annoyed with the slanderous things I had been called and fighting any thought of someone getting close to me because I suddenly questioned their motives and just the same as many rockers do other groupies. But they never questioned me and my friends, not even now, not even with the newfound rock and roll reputation. I waltzed through the backstage door with the same popularized notorieties most of the rockers I had slept with had. I was a new kind of a groupie entity, one that no other groupie from my time became. Old groupies that were still bitter from back in the day used me to try and re-grab the brass ring of groupie glory. Cammy. That's who I mean. But it was long gone and rusted out. That little groupie brass ring. It was sitting in my little box of odd rock star objects only I understand. I backed off rock and roll and ventured only into familiar territories where I knew I could just be Allison. No sidekick, no girls who always ended up jealous and angry like Cammy. With my boys, I could relax in the middle of all my hazy aftermath and just be the girl they knew from back in the day. At one time or another, I had grown with them, laughed with them, and been part of it all right alongside them, if not a little bit underneath them. In another shocking reality, however, I was weary of it all. Backstage wasn't my drug anymore. I didn't need it to define who I was, even though it owned me outright. Backstage had long become my home, my proverbial parents' house where we tend to go after devastating moments in our lives. And as usual, it was there to coddle me and protect me from the outside world. But we all leave our parents' home sooner or later, although we do come back for regular visits. So there we go. I didn't stop. I was still full fucking steam ahead. Because like I said, I was trying so hard to not deal with the mourning, because like I said, I was basically conditioned that I don't get to mourn. I don't get to do all this. I don't get to go through the emotions that everybody gets to go through when they're mourning someone that they love that they lost. Because we had to protect everything. We had to protect John. We had to protect the world from the schmoes. We had to protect, Cy had to protect the family. He had to protect the ex-girlfriend. He had to protect, me, So it's like I didn't get to mourn, so I just kind of kept going. And it all crashes and burns. And not some crazy way with me. It's just I had to stop. I just had to stop and become a hermit for a while. Like I would still go out to LA and hang out with Cy, and we'd go to the Rainbow and hang out with Michael. So sad. They're both gone. I've lost both of those guys who were there, that made me feel like I was everything in the world. When I just wanted to retreat from it, they made sure that I got out there. So that's what was going on after 2002. So there you guys go. Hope you enjoyed it, and I hope it entices you to buy the book, and I hope it kind of puts a different perspective on groupie, because we've spent way too much time being almost famous, because almost famous is bullshit. I mean, Cameron Crowe wasn't even from California. He wasn't, there were so many things that were bullshit about that movie. I'm here to tell you the reality, and that's it. You crash and burn, and you have to take a step back. Watch season 6 of Californication about that groupie. Some familiar things will come up that sound real fucking familiar. So, but there you guys go. Hope you enjoy and hope you understand what I was doing after 2002 now and why I just kind of left the book where it was, because, like I said, the crescendo. After all those years in rock and roll, what the fuck just happened? And what happens after that? You stick to what you know. You stick to what's safe. And then sometimes you got to walk away from it for just a little while. But it never lets you, does it? Not me, anyway. So, all right, guys. Thank you for everybody who made it to the end of the episode, who's bought my book, who's really hanging out, really enjoying it, and really actually watching all the episodes. Because I get a lot of people asking me stuff like, "Did you ever meet John Sykes?" That episode's already been done. "Did you ever meet so and so?" That episode's already been done. So and so and so. Thank you to everybody who's watching, who's everything. So watch some more, you guys, because you're going to discover some shit. I mean, I'm surprised nobody's even asked me about the Bon Jovi poker game. And that's one of my biggest watched videos. But, ooh, yeah, go down, you guys. Explore. Fiddle about. And enjoy. Enjoy, because everybody here, I do enjoy you. Everybody. Because I know my videos are a lot to go through since it's almost 3 years. 3 years I've been around. So I know it's a lot to go through, but it's worth the binge watch. And it's worth buying the book. Because like I said, people are like, "God, it's so repetitive." Yeah, that's rock and roll, sweetie. And if you don't see that for the reality it is, and you don't catch what the story is really truly about, everything that happens in the middle of those little boring moments and repetitive moments, then you're just stuck on Almost Famous. So, all right, you guys. And thank you so, so much for all the love, all the support, all the kindness, all the friendships. You guys mean the world to me. So we will see you next time here on... Go down, hit the share, hit the subscribe, and hit my bells. And we'll see you next time on Cocktails and Rocktails. Cheers, big ears.